Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a time lapse of me creating my July 2020 bullet journal setup. Since the bullet journal I chose was only 48 pages, I had to start my second bullet journal of the year. Ideally, I would have had the same bullet journal for the entire year, but there just weren't that many options that I found for watercolor paper bullet journals. This one seemed to be the most reasonable in size and had the largest quantity that I could find. The same way that I set up my other 2020 bullet journal, I made the first page the table of contents with gradient watercolor letters. This is so much fun. I love watching the colors bleed into one another. When doing watercolor gradient lettering, I like to make sure I pack in as much pigment as I can to make it really pop. I also make sure to choose colors that contrast well against the page background, like blue, purple, and turquoise. My goals for the rest of 2020 include smile and breathe often, choose joy, and practice DNRS, exercise and get outside 3 to 5 times a week, build an online store, and build my confidence. This whole year has been a little out of this world, so what better time to do a galaxy-themed spread? I also love to look and paint the moon, so I thought that it would be a good time to incorporate some of the phases of the moon into my bullet journal as well. For the moon phases, as long as you have a circle stencil, like a roll of washi tape or the lid of a jar, they are really fast and easy to sketch out. Building up the opacity and creating craters takes a little bit of time because the layers have to dry before adding more paint. And it's also easy to blend out mistakes using tissue to blot the page or even just a clean brush with water to blend it into the paint around it. If it's a really big mistake, I use a damp magic eraser to carefully lift the color off of the paper. I originally thought that doing a galaxy and moon phases theme spread would be really difficult just because it's a lot different and it involves a lot more watercolor than the spreads I've done before. But it actually turned out to be pretty easy and relatively similar in terms of how much time it took me to do. For the cover page, I knew that I wanted to do a big, beautiful full moon front and center with a galaxy background. I've had this idea in my head for a while because I have done a few pieces already with this concept of a celestial body in front of a galaxy background. This idea sort of helped me to come up with the look of the rest of this month too. I'm pretty sure that I spent most of my time painting on this page for this spread, but since it was the first page of the month, I was willing to be patient. I wanted this moon to have really deep and contrasted craters, and at the end I went in with a detail brush and added some thready starburst patterns that show up in both the lightest and darkest parts of the moon. You can easily use a hairdryer to speed up the process of the drying, but it is important to let each layer dry before adding more paint. For the galaxy, I started by creating a rough shape of the big cloud I wanted to be behind my moon with my lightest color. I ended up choosing a light blue, dark blue, turquoise, purple, and metallic pink to create this galaxy because those colors go well together and contrast well against the page. Choosing one color to be metallic and layering it on top actually ended up giving the final look a really cool, shiny, and textured feel. I did galaxies for the first 2 pages together so that I could make them complement one another and kind of go with one another. While the galaxy ends up look a little different, I wanted to kind of make sure that they seemed like continuations of the same galaxy throughout the spread. It took a little bit of time to build up the colors in the galaxy, but overall it worked out well because I used a higher quality of paint than I did when I did the first spreads I did of 2020. I tried to let each color have a chance to show through, and at the end I went in and added tiny accents of really richly pigmented clouds. I also added some stars with really concentrated white paint and a detailed brush to give it more of a galaxy feel. For the important dates page, I traced the calendar with my light box and then outlined everything with my 0.2mm Saccharum Micron pen. I really like having my important dates page in this layout because I can easily see where each event is in relation to everything else in my month or week. It also helps me to pre-plan and write down any events that I have planned before I have completed that section of the weekly spread. Bullet journaling is so fun and rewarding, but it's definitely a lot of work. You have to enjoy it in order to keep it up the way it needs to be. I also have a Google Calendar that helps me keep track of big things that I need to remember and I haven't yet been able to transfer into my bullet journal. For the goals page, I wanted to tie in a little bit of the phases of the moon theme back into the spread, and it was a little hard for me to come up with the look of this page because there wasn't much inspiration out there for space-themed goal pages, but I ended up using this goddess moon configuration again because it's one of my favorite ways to display the phases of the moon. Since these moons are smaller than the cover page moon, I used a small detail brush to create texture and craters. You do have to be a little careful not to oversaturate the moon with too much water, otherwise the craters start to blend into one another and the texture can get lost. So the detail brush helps this a lot. I painted the moons with the same approach that I used for the first page, and then I added some details where I could. My first goal this month is to be mindful of stress and redirect it using the strategies I have learned from DNRS. Stress, especially in our world right now, is inevitable. However, I have learned that I have a choice in how I deal with that stress. I can either let it manifest and perpetuate it by focusing on how uncomfortable it is, or I can simply feel it, breathe deeply, and redirect or distract my brain for about 2 minutes and let it go. My second goal is to take it slow and enjoy the summer. This will help me to remember to reduce stress when possible and to just enjoy the nice weather while it's here. My last goal is to do 1 to 2 DNRS practices per day. Similar to many yogis or meditation gurus, these practices just help me to ground myself and set my intentions for the day. For the habit tracker, again, I used my Lightbox to trace the skeleton that I found on Pinterest. This saved me quite a bit of drawing time, which is huge when you're busy and short on time. The habits I chose to include are exercise, being social, gardening, no spend, dishes, laundry, art, and my DNRS practices. I love habit trackers because they are a great way to hold yourself accountable for getting tasks done. At the end of the month, I can see which tasks have been turned into well-adopted habits and which tasks may need a little bit more time to get adopted into my routine. I also use it to supplement my to-do list. I chose things that I do close to every day or at least multiple times a week, so that instead of having to write it down over and over, I can just color in the day. It's also helpful for me to see the whole month at once at the end so I can know how much progress I've made and set my future goals accordingly. For the last page before the weekly spread, I decided to do another word art page. I chose these words, "Aim for the moon, even if you'll miss, you'll land amongst the stars," because I feel like they reflect my outlook and approach on life. I really try hard to focus on the growth within myself instead of comparing what I am doing to what other people are doing and accomplishing. We are all very unique and on our own journeys, and it isn't fair to myself to compare myself to what other people my age are currently doing. I strive to do the best that I can do, and after that, I'm okay with whatever happens because I know that I gave it my all. I kept the weekly spread this month really simple in terms of drawing. I knew that I wanted to do something that included a watercolor galaxy, so I didn't want too much else going on so that I had room to write out everything that I need to do and have the galaxy. I am slowly transitioning out of my vigorous DNRS training since I'm doing so much better, and now I just have lingering challenges associated with my limbic system disorder, and my training looks more like doing my practices once or twice a day, managing my stress level, prioritizing self-care, and surrounding myself with things that make me happy. I don't do my successes journaling every day like I used to, but I still like to keep this area available for an overflowing to-do list, random thoughts, or reflections of gratitude. One reason that I love bullet journaling is that it's a creative way to go about keeping my life organized and practice good mental health habits. Even though I'm not having to spend quite as much time healing, it is important, especially in such stressful world circumstances, that I continue to prioritize my health and well-being. If you don't take care of your body, it can't take care of you. Thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like to see more bullet journaling, watercolor, and drawing videos, please like this video and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram at Inspired Productivity to check out my latest artwork. Stay safe and healthy out there. See you soon. Bye.